All righty. Welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington. Welcome today to another episode of the Guts. Excuse me, let me try that again. Welcome to another episode of the Guts, Grit, and Great Business podcast. I'm so excited to have our guest on the show with us today. We've got Breanne. And Breanne, tell me how to say your last name.
Breanne Dyck.
Dyck. Okay, I wanted to make sure. I hate mispronouncing people's names. So Breanne and I connected a few weeks ago, and I've been so excited about this conversation because I feel like everybody, at least the folks that I serve, needs to hear it. There's going to be so much good, relevant stuff, but let's introduce Breanne quickly. So she is the visionary, she's the co-founder and the visionary behind the Visionary CEO Academy, which helps coaches, agency owners, and consultants who are overwhelmed and burning out because they've hit max capacity. She's got more than 10 years of experience in operations, team building, finance, and business strategy. She's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs structure their business for infinite scalability while freeing them up to do the creative work they love best. So the thing that I love about her journey, she began her journey into entrepreneurship in the late 90s and early 2000s as a user experience and web designer. So as online courses came into vogue, she added instructional design, operations, team building, and leadership to her skill set, culminating in the publication of her best-selling book, Beyond Satisfaction, in 2016. So some other things that I love about Breanne, when we spoke last, I love that she told me, like, she doesn't have a list. She does relationship building the way that I have in the past, all one-on-one and through real conversations. So I really love that about her. I love her picture wall. So if you see the show, you will see it. If you're on the podcast, let me just say that as a former photographer, there's nothing that makes me happier than nice images in pretty black frames, like looking very neatly aligned on a wall. So imagine all sorts of interesting images behind her. So I love her picture wall. Her business is MNIB Consulting. But one of the posts that you shared on your Facebook page that I also really love is, and I wanted to share it here because I want to get people a sense of what you do and how you help people, says our ROI expectations for any investment are to add the amount of the investment to our top line revenue on a monthly basis within 6 months.
Yeah.
I just think that's such a great standard. And for people, when they're thinking about hiring folks like you and investing in their business, I mean, I just love that you've got the vision to help them understand when that's a good investment and how to turn that into a good investment. So let's get started. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
I mean, just in that intro alone, I think we hit upon, 5 or 10 different things we could talk about. So it's going to be a great conversation.
Totally. Well, I just loved our conversation when we first connected about like the ins and outs of the kind of the two groups of people that you serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have similar constraints, but approaching it from different sides of the same coin. Will you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the online business world, which, I've been working in that since the late 90s, early 2000s, as you heard, in the online business world, as things have evolved, we've essentially got to a point where most people start one-on-one and they're like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't want to work a traditional job, or I want to quit my traditional job. So I'm going to go and try and find some work. And that usually ends up being some form of one-on-one services, coaching, something like that. And most of us, I certainly had this experience where you very quickly find out that there's only one of you. And if you actually want to have the business and the time freedom and the money and the impact that, you have in your imagination, if you want that to be a reality, you need to do something a little different than have it just be you working one-on-one with people all the time. And so the online business world, I've watched it and it's been fascinating because it goes through these cycles. And, at first it was, you got to write ebooks. And then it was, now it can't just be ebooks. Now you have to put multimedia in. So then it was guides, ebooks with videos. And then it was courses. And then people are like, no, courses are too low touch. They don't actually get results. You know, in my book, I cite the statistic that something like 3% of online courses actually get completed. That's not success rate, that's completion rate. And so then it was like, okay, and then we need to do this high touch. And so right now, the industry is in this place where this high ticket, low ticket, high touch, low touch conversation going on. And so when people come to me, to our business, the question that they often had on their mind is either I've been trying to build my business through the courses, memberships, group programs route, and it's not working because I'm still working too hard, I'm still too busy, and I'm not able to get the results that I want because I have to keep putting more and more and more people into my programs. You know, I can maybe get results for a group of 10, but 100 people would be too much. I can't handle that. So that's the first group. The second group is the ones who have seen that problem. And they're like, I ain't going down that route. I want to make sure that I stay really high touch. I want to stay really high end. And so they tend to say, well, I'm just going to hire more people. This is where, you know, I started off as a web designer. If I had decided I was going to scale a web design business, I would have built an agency, right? I would have hired on developers and project managers and account managers and all of these people. Coaches do it too, right? I want to have a super high-end program and I want to keep it really high touch. So I'm going to bring in a mindset coach and a sales coach and a this coach and a that coach. And we end up with this agency model where we have, yes, a lot of high touch, and that's a lot of people to manage. That's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces. And so the most fascinating thing about these two models, the course model and the agency model, is course people look at the agency model and say, maybe I should go try that. Maybe there's something there for me to do. And agency people say, maybe I should go and try and pursue this passive income thing. Maybe I should go and try some courses. And the truth is that when they come to us, folks are either looking at these options or they've tried it. And all they're saying is, I don't know how to get out of this. Because everything I'm looking at is either requiring me to sacrifice what I care about, which is the clients, or I have to work harder, have a massive team, and I'm not satisfied with both of those. So what do I do? And that's the question that I help them to answer.
There's so much in there to unpack. And I think, I mean, for anybody listening that has tried either of those paths, like you touched on the pain point, and this is a huge one. I mean, even for myself in trying to figure out how to serve more people, how to create content that's consumable in bite-sized pieces that will actually, you know, take a client from here to there. But, you know, the pain point of engaging people at the level that we want to, like serving them and actually having them complete the course. I mean, you mentioned the statistic about like 3% of courses actually being finished. Oh, it's so brutal. I mean, you think about the amount of energy and time that people pour into building those and like really putting their heart and their work into creating something that they, you know, really hope will serve people. And then to have that level of completion rate, it's just brutal. And then on the flip side, like you mentioned, growing a team and having things become unruly and having that kind of take over their ability to be focused on serving the client is also so painful. So how do you address people on that path? How do you kind of blend those approaches or get people to a happy spot?
Well, the truth is, and this is both the painful truth, but also the really exciting truth, is that there is no one size fits all solution. There is no cookie cutter solution for what this is going to look like. That's in fact what got us into this problem in the first place, right? Trying to follow someone else's cookie cutter model for our business, but their customers and they as owners and their team and their business and their goals and their vision is different than ours. And so their cookie cutter doesn't end up giving us what we want. And so when we're looking at answering this question, there's a few different lenses that we use to say, how do we actually create the thing that you want? Not what I want, not what someone else wants, but what you want. And what we look at these lenses are essentially, like I said, there's three of them. The first lens is what kind of profit structure do you want your business to have? So not just revenue. There's this idea out there that you should just be chasing your next revenue target, right? Add another 6 figures, add another 10K a month, get to $1 million, all of that. And for me, all of that revenue talk is just entrepreneurial junk food. It's just junk food that tastes good, but it doesn't actually mean that you're healthy. From my perspective, revenue is actually the ultimate vanity metric. What I really want to see is if you're profitable in your business. And that doesn't mean that you're just able to pay yourself a lot of money. I mean that I want your business itself to be profitable. I want you to have money that the business gets to keep, because then you have a way of intentionally using the money that comes into your business as a way to fuel growth. So if you think about every dollar has a job, YNAB, you need a budget personal finance software, that's their motto, every dollar has a job. It's true in our business. Every dollar that we bring in should have a job to grow our business. It should pay for you. It should pay for your team. It should pay for operating expenses, or it should be profit, which is an indicator that you can reinvest for growth. So that's the first lens, is what should your profit even look like? What do you want it to look like? Do you want to have massive profit margins? Do you want to grow more quickly? You need to know what the jobs of those dollars are before you can even try and figure out things like pricing or how much you can afford to pay for your team or any of those kinds of things.
No, I love that. I mean, in just looking at your background, I can tell, I mean, it shows in your conversation, your various skill sets. I mean, you have such a unique, like your finance experience, your instructional design. Like I can tell that you really understand all of this very, very well. And a lot of these topics are terrible pinch points for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I bet you see all kinds of craziness going on in the finance side of things in these businesses. I remember when you and I first spoke and you mentioned, seeing businesses that had on the revenue side done really well, but then 98% of that had to go to pay for operations, or to pay for people on their team, or to pay for the cost of hosting their events.
Yeah, well, and I think that takes us actually to the second of these three elements, which is so important, which is your team. And when we're talking about profit and team, so many entrepreneurs get themselves into a situation where it's like cash flow versus capacity. I either need to take more clients so that I can make enough to hire people, except I can't take on more clients because I'm too busy, so I need to hire. And it's like a chicken and an egg. Do I hire? Do I increase capacity? What do I do? And so that's a sign that our profit element and our team element are misaligned. Because team, at the end of the day, isn't about the individual people that you have. Not only, I mean, the individual people are obviously very important, but instead it's thinking about how your team functions as a unit. So the mental image that I would love to offer here is, imagine the difference between walking a bunch of dogs. You've got 5 or 10 dogs, you're holding all of the leashes, and they're kind of, walking down the street, and one dog stops at a fire hydrant, and the other one chases a squirrel, and the other one's kind of tired and lagging behind. And so you're in the middle, like the hub of this wheel with the dogs all being spokes, and you're getting tired because you're being literally pulled in all these different directions, because these dogs are all operating independently. They're all doing their own thing. And that's what so often happens when we build our teams, is we hire someone to manage our email list, someone to handle our inbox, someone to design our landing pages, someone to manage our Facebook group, and we hire individuals to do tasks. The counterpoint and the counter image that I'd like to offer is, imagine you had those same dogs, but this time, instead of you're a dog walker holding their leashes, this time you're the driver of a team of sled dogs, right? So you've got your 8 dogs, your 10 dogs, and they've got the harness, and the harness is holding them together, and it's keeping them in sync. And the lead dog starts to go one way and the other dogs notice and they go along, or this dog notices something and they all start to move. You're still there coordinating. You're still there setting the direction and helping them to see what's coming and adjust. But that team of dogs is now operating as a unit. They're working as a collective, as a true team, rather than as individuals. How much less tiring is it for you to be able to just get on your sled and work together with your team to make this progress? And so this is the second element, that as you're scaling, we don't want to have a team that's a collection of individuals. We want to have a team that in aggregate is better than you could ever be on your own. It's a team where everyone is in there making decisions, involved in helping to grow the business at the same time.
I love that imagery. First of all, the image of a bunch of, dogs trying to go different directions versus the being in a harness, pulling a sled, all moving in the same direction. Is the struggle for folks that are trying to grow team, is it, just so we're clear and so listeners can sort out where they fit, is it because they're hiring people, like you said, for tasks, for projects? Are these part-time team members? Are they very project-based team members? Is it the way that they're hiring, or does it matter if it's an independent contractor versus, say, a full-time employee, and it really just gets down to leadership?
Yes. The answer to that or question is yes. So when we work with our clients on this, we really are interested in saying, what is the best solution for where you are right now and for where you want to be in a year to 3 years? And one of the big things that we emphasize as we do this is, what are the outcomes that we want to see achieved? This is different than what tasks need to be accomplished. So there's a concept that we talk about a lot, which is ownership. It's about having your team take ownership over certain decisions and responsibilities and outcomes. So someone on your team can take ownership for ensuring that you hit your sales goals. Someone could actually have ownership over setting the sales goal and the sales target in the first place, right? There's all of these decisions. There's essentially 5 different types of decisions: how things get done, what gets done, when you get things done, and where and why you're going there in the first place, right? There's all these different types of decisions. And it's about enabling and empowering the right people to make the right decisions using their brain rather than just telling them what to do. And then entering into a conversation, which is what leadership is, right? The one thing I don't like about the sled dog team imagery is, if you're not as familiar with it, you think of it as, I'm driving the dogs, right? And the truth is that it's a partnership, right? The driver is receiving feedback from the dogs just as much as he or she is leading the team of dogs in front of him. And the same has to be true on our teams. So to use that analogy, if you think about the harness that's connecting all the dogs to each other, to the sled, and to the person driving, that's the role of culture in our business, right? Culture is the glue that keeps your business connected. It's how you communicate. It's how you hire. It's how you assess. It's how you reward. It's how you help people progress and develop. All of those elements of culture ultimately are what keep you from having to be the dog walker, and instead give you this team that you can lead, but which you are also empowering to be able to create the outcomes that you're wanting.
I love that. So it sounds like, I mean, in my mind, there's 2 parts to this. It's having the vision of where you're going, first of all,
Yeah.
right? Rather than just hiring somebody on a short-term task and saying, do this. You're working towards a vision. And regardless of how you're bringing them onto your team, whether it's project-based, whether it's, a series of projects, you're still having the right conversation with them that will set everybody up for a collective experience of team versus a mix of independent folks doing
Yeah.
independent things.
Exactly. And there are certainly really good reasons, legal being one of them, to have employees versus contractors, and that's a completely different rabbit hole that we could go down.
Right.
But from a cultural and a business building perspective, really it's about, what are you trying to build? What are you trying to create? What do you want the feeling to be of someone that works with you as a part of your team? And one question that's really good to think about when you're hiring someone and you're thinking about, who's the right person? Do I want an employee? Do I want a contractor? Is around this idea of culture. What would make someone the perfect fit for my business that would make them a terrible fit for someone else's? Because that's really what's going to help make your business not only unique and more marketable and easier to make sales, but that's also what's going to make it actually easier for you to step away from the day-to-day. Because the things that make someone perfect for your business that might make them terrible for someone else's are the things that you're wanting to see carried forward in your work in the world.
Mm, that's fascinating. Can you describe that for me a bit more? Give me an example of that scenario.
Yeah, sure. So very first exercise, well, yeah, I think it is the very first. I was going to say maybe it's the second, but I think it is the very first exercise that when a client comes to work with us, we have them define what we call their differentiated values. Because most people at some point in their business career have done values exercises, and most of them come up with values that are, in my opinion, terrible, right? Integrity, honesty, transparency. Let me tell you, I hope that you are going to run your business with integrity and transparency and honesty. We shouldn't have to say those things. They are values that should be intrinsic. So what do we want to do? We want to find what makes us different. What are the values that set us apart as a company from anyone else? Let's use the example of a restaurant. You could have a fast food restaurant that values consistency and speed above all else, right? That's their number one value. And then you have the local, kind of maybe a boutique-y type restaurant down the street. And for them, it's about the experience. It's about fresh, local, high quality ingredients. That's their priority. So as soon as you know what the values are, that then starts to filter through to all of your decisions, including hiring. Do I want to hire a chef or a line cook who's going to follow the checklist exactly as it says, step by step by step, and they're going to do exactly what they're told? The answer is yes if I run a fast food restaurant, and no if I run the local restaurant. The local restaurant, I actually want someone who's going to take a little bit of more time. They're going to be willing to speak up and say, hey, I think we oversalted this, right? We want someone who's going to take initiative and use their brain in a different way. And so those differentiated values affect all elements of our culture, and they affect everything from the vision and purpose and mission of the business, all the way down to who you hire, how you hire them, all the way through. It covers the entire spectrum, including the third element, which I want to make sure we get to before folks are wondering, where are we getting to, which is the results element of your business.
Yeah, well, really quick on that point. So, how do you think people get it wrong? What are they doing instead of starting top down with values and, putting people into spots based on that? How are they doing it wrong?
Well, I think in my experience, we do the right things often, but without an understanding of why and how they should actually work. So that's why I say a lot of people have done values exercises before. A lot of people have purpose, vision, and mission statements. A lot of people have hired before, right? There's a depth to it. There's stuff that goes on underneath the surface. And it's not just about words on a page, it's about the application of the words on the page. So when I think about culture, for me, it's behaviors, yes, which is essentially what values are. They're the behaviors that we want to see and the behaviors that we don't want to see. But there's also the systems and the practices that make those behaviors show up every day in what we do. And that's what most people don't, frankly, just have any experience. And often they don't have awareness that that's what they need in their business. And so they see what other people are doing. And we're learning, let's be honest, we're learning from a lot of people who don't understand this themselves. That's why I've worked with a lot of folks who are leaders in this industry, and they don't understand this, right? In some cases, we've got the blind leading the blind in a lot of these areas. And so we're left to implement tactics, but we don't necessarily have the depth of understanding to say why these things work the way they do. And if you don't understand why they work the way they do, you can't adapt them to your unique situation, which is why we end up going cookie cutter in the first place.
I love that explanation. So one of the statements you made that I love and that fits, like when you said it, it resonates because I see it in my industry as well. So you said we often do the right things without understanding how they fit.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, so like what I see in my work, and you could take that same statement, and the way that I describe it is like people are trying the tactics, getting back to the final piece you added, they're trying the tactics. They're like, oh, I think I need a trademark, or I think I need this. And it's an isolated piece of the picture. It might be the right thing, might be in the wrong order, might be out of context with other priorities. They need to understand it in the context of all of their priorities, right? So where I try to start with my clients is what I call the legal roadmap, like understanding the roadmap first so that then they can prioritize based on that understanding. And without that, it's a little bit like decision making in the dark. They're wandering around saying, I think I need this, I think I need this, but they don't have the whole picture. That's what it sounds like when you said that about, you know, doing the right things, but not understanding how they fit.
And then we wonder why we burn out, why we're overwhelmed, why we can't get all the stuff done that's on our plate. And the truth is because we put all this stuff on our plate without understanding why. And if we really understood the why, we would realize that if we did this one thing and this one other thing, we could eliminate 80%, 80-20 rule, right? Pareto principle. If we really understood why the 20% of things are important, we could eliminate the other 80% because they're actually not going to make that much of a difference.
I love that. So it's just really about getting the clarity around what fits, eliminate. And I hear you on the unnecessary stuff. So many people piling everything onto their plate. I think that's totally a byproduct of just not knowing the path, not knowing the strategy, not knowing how to focus, because there's so many things that we could be doing.
Yeah.
So let's get to your the third part of this puzzle.
Yeah. So just to recap, you know, first we talked about profit and knowing how the money that comes into your business gets used to grow the business. Then we talked about team, which is not just giving people tasks, but actually getting them to make decisions and giving them ownership over outcomes. And the third piece of the puzzle is all about how we connect with our clients to get them results. And so for me, this starts from the moment that someone enters my world, whether or not they're a client yet. So you're listening to this podcast episode, and as far as I'm concerned, our journey together has started. We are here, and my job is to help you get results. And my job is to continue to help you get results, ideally as you work with me. And then even after we've worked together, I still want to make sure that you're getting results. And so this framework from first touch to last touch is the results element, which this is where people get themselves a little twisted up because it goes back to right where we started. Courses, memberships, agencies, service, high ticket, low ticket, events, add in about 100 different other options that you could do. And at the end of the day, you know, we just talked about the 80-20 rule. If there is one thing that I want you, listener, I'm talking to you right now. If I want you to take one thing away from this, I want you to imagine that we're watching the Olympics, probably on TV because, you know, coronavirus, but you're watching the Olympics and it's track and field. And we've got the 110-meter hurdles and it's the men's race and they're running and the world record is set. It's right around 12 seconds for the world record for the men's 110-meter hurdles. And then the next event comes up and it's the men's 100-meter dash, right? So they're going to sprint, they're going to run, they're going as fast as they can. They charge down and another world record is set. The world record for the 100-meter race is around 4 seconds. The world record for the 110-meter hurdles is around 12 seconds. Now, the difference between those two races is not 10 meters, right? The extra 8 seconds that it takes the world record holder to run in the hurdles race, it's not because it's 110 meters as opposed to 10, right? Like that's 3 yards for you Americans, right? Like that's not adding 8 seconds. The difference is the hurdles, right? It's the hurdles that we put between the start line and the finish line. And so when you're thinking about how you get results with your clients, your only and most important question to ask is, how can I remove obstacles between where they are and where they want to be? That means you need to take stuff out of your delivery. You need to take stuff out of your program. You need to take stuff out. Fewer coaching calls, fewer revisions, fewer iterations, fewer videos, fewer training modules, do less, because everything you put in is a hurdle, an obstacle that's getting in the way of your client getting their ultimate result. How do I know that? Because if they could get the result without those things, they would. So your job is to put in only those hurdles, which absolutely must be there. And if you took them out, then they wouldn't get the result. But if it's a hurdle that's going to slow them down, everything you include in your program or your service is an obstacle between your client and their success. Your job is to minimize those obstacles. And to bring this full circle, when you minimize those obstacles, it becomes much easier to be profitable. And when you minimize those obstacles, it becomes much easier to have your team come in and support, because you know your team's not wasting time supporting things that really ought not be there because they're not providing value. So all of these things, your profit, your team, your results, they're all interconnected. They all have to work together if you want to grow your business, if you want to scale without having these trade-offs, without burning yourself out, without sacrificing results or profit or team. The only way to get all 3 of those things to where you want them is for all 3 to work together.
Mm. The thing that stands out to me about that final point that I think is totally counterintuitive, like to anybody listening, I mean, I love the simplicity aspect, like do less, take stuff out. But I think, and myself included, when you're thinking about supporting your own client journey, you think, oh, more is better, more support, more access, more touch, more, more.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard. I mean, what I feel like is that this is the instructional designer in you.
It is.
Right? Coming out and being like, stop, people, this is not helping.
Yeah.
So, but like for me, because I have a lot of activation energy, so I can speak to my own experience around my preference for how I want to deliver something. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And on our last call, I remember telling you about experimenting with the workshop model and being like, I just want people to show up and get it done, and it's streamlined, and we get all their questions answered, and boom, the documents get plugged in, and they understand a lot more about being in the online world of business. But what I'm finding is that doesn't work for everybody. Right? People have to work at their own pace. And so I'm in a position now, like I did a big outreach to anybody who'd gone through one of my recent workshops. And it was interesting because I just asked the question, like, what support do you need? If you haven't completed the workshop, if you haven't plugged this stuff in, what's getting in the way? And, right away I had quite a few people reach back out and just be like, thank you for checking in. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just a matter of accountability, but like I'm in that journey right now of figuring out what does ideal support look like, while also minimizing it so that people are allowed to just get it done.
Yeah. The important thing to realize here is that value has to be received, not just given. So if I give you something which I perceive as valuable, and you can't make use of it, or you can't make it valuable to you, I haven't actually given you value. Right? So value isn't just about what you give, it's about what they receive. And so as we go through this with our clients, we actually map out together. We say, what are all the things you do? What's the value that you give? What's the value that that they receive? We also look at the flip side, which is, what value does this bring to your business? What value do they give back to you? Because the best client experiences are ones that do encompass that whole journey, right? I want someone who attends a workshop to get incredible value out of it. But I also, at that same workshop, say it's a live workshop or a Zoom workshop or whatever, I also want to be able to take a screenshot of all of these faces and be able to use it in my social media marketing with the top 5 takeaways from this morning's session where da 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 da, right? So I want to build in value given on my part and received by them, and value given by them to me and received by me, because that fuels the engine. So that's why the results start from the first touch and go all the way beyond, because every time you interface with a client or a customer, it's an opportunity for there to be an exchange of mutual value.
I love that. I think that I think a lot of us get that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and especially the folks that I serve, right? I serve mission-driven, conscientious entrepreneurs, people who are totally service-oriented, like very heart-centered folks.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard to always approach your business from the standpoint of building, and I love this, like feedback loop, building in value that is also received by you in the business.
Yeah. And, to your point, that's why I'm the consultant. My partner, Jill, is the coach. And I mean, it's one thing to do, I'm the analytical one, right? So you're listening to me talk and it's all very analytical and it's always like, go through and do this and this and this and this and this. And on top of, or maybe through all of this, there's the getting out of our own way, right? A big part, even let's take actually any of the 3, team, results, profit. There is our willingness to lead that will ultimately impact how effective we are. So our ability and willingness to lead a client and to say, this is what you need. You need to do it in this way and in this order, and I'm going to hold you accountable to that. Actually, you're going to hold yourself accountable to it because I'm going to expect that of you. I have to be willing to say, if you could have got there on your own, you would have. That's why we're going to do it my way, right? So we have to be willing to lead through that experience. We have to be willing to lead with our team. We have to be willing to lead with our money and not just be at the effect of the money in our business. And so that, you can call it mindset, you can call it whatever you want, but that willingness to become someone different, to grow beyond who you are right now, and truly to grow beyond being the business to having a business. That's the work of coaching, which we haven't even touched on here, but is an incredibly integral part of the process.
Agreed. I think that so much, on each of these topics that you've addressed, it's really about somebody examining who they are being in their business and how to essentially change, in my perspective, almost everything about that, right? The only way that we get from here to there, it's a little bit that funny quote about like trying the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a couple of different ways we can look at that. So number one is, how do you know if you're solving the right problem in your business, right? You're trying to solve a problem and you'd feel like you're not making progress. How do you even know if you're solving the right problem? You know you're solving the right problem when it's no longer a problem, right? You will only know that you've really found the right problem in hindsight. That's where the benefit of having someone outside of you who's maybe been on that journey or just has an external view can be so beneficial. But the other part of it is I'm going to offer a different perspective. It's not about becoming someone different or changing. Instead, for me, I want to see you becoming more of who you really are, right? I don't want you to try to become a clone of me or a clone of Heather or a clone of Jill or a clone of your business partner. I don't want you to try and do those things. And in fact, as we're in this journey of growing our business and growing our teams and evolving into the next evolution, for me, the focus needs to be on becoming more of who you are, stepping further into your zone of genius, and allowing others to step in and elevate the areas where you were weak by bringing in their strengths, right? Surround yourself, we said this in the team bit, surround yourself with people who are in aggregate better than you could ever be. You're never going to find people who are as good at you as all the things you do. You're simply not. But you can find people who are better than you at specific pieces of it. And when you get that, then you get to focus in your zone of genius. Then you get to become more of who you really are. And you have the transferable skills. I know by virtue of the fact that you have got a business, you have the transferable skills to lead. All we need to do is give you the opportunity and the framework within which to bring that to the fore and do it in a way that is who you really are.
Yes, I love your clarification on that point. And, you know, the part about people not needing to change themselves, I think we have to change the way that we think about certain things in our
Yeah.
business, change the way that we might approach a topic that we've tried to approach in a certain way for so long,
Yeah.
right? So it's really about changing our perspective. And I think what's really crucial is the point also about always maintaining an outside perspective on our business. We don't always get to have clear vision around where we're stuck or why something is not working. And so that outside perspective, and it's a theme with everybody in the industry that you talk to, outside perspectives are a must, especially for growth. Anybody that's on a growth plan.
Yeah. Yeah. If you knew how to get where you wanted to go, you'd already be there.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's right. So before we wrap up, I think you've got a gift for our audience. You want to talk to us about that?
Absolutely. And it ties in perfectly with the conversation we've been having here, which is, you know, knowing where you're at, assessing where you're at, being able to give yourself a little bit of that outside perspective. And so if you head to visionaryceoacademy.com/GGG, really simple, visionaryceoacademy.com/GGG, we've got an assessment there that you can go through and you can kind of use our questions and our lens to evaluate, you know, especially on the team side of things and on the delivery side of things, where are you at? How scalable are you? Of course, if you decide you want to shortcut that process and you just want to, you know, get in touch with me and Jill and say, I just want you to come and look at this, there's a link there as well. And you're, you know, more than happy to have a conversation and see if that's something that we can help you with as well.
Awesome. I love that. Well, I feel like whether you provided that gift and an assessment sounds really powerful, especially in the context of this conversation, because it was really juicy. Like you already gave us so much to chew on and to think about differently, which I love. If people did want to connect with you, obviously they can go to your link. And for anybody listening, check out the show notes at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. We'll provide all the links there, as well as additional links for connecting with Breanne. Breanne, where's your favorite place to connect?
I'm pretty much 100% Facebooker. So if you want to come and hang out on my personal Facebook profile, I'm not quite at my 5,000 friend limit yet. So you can come find me, facebook.com/Breanne.Dyck, or you can connect with both Jill and I at the Visionary CEO Academy page. And we are more than happy to hang out with you there as well.
I love that. And just so people know, Breanne's last name is spelled Dyck, so that you can find her online. Breanne, thank you so much for being here today. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
You know, I really would encourage, like you said, we talked about a lot of stuff. We covered a lot of ground. There's one final frame that I would love to offer everyone. And that is, we call it the to-do model. and it's an acronym because I love acronyms. So I want you to just on a piece of paper or open up a file on your computer or on your phone, wherever you are, write down the letters TODO. Beside T, I want you to write down your number one takeaway. From listening to this, what's the number one thing that jumps out at you as a takeaway for you in your situation right now? Beside the O, the first O, I want you to write down what are your obstacles to implementing that takeaway? What could get in your way? Beside the D, write down your decision. What are you going to decide to do about those obstacles? Because sometimes you might decide, you know what? It's not the right time. Sometimes you might decide, I'm going to commit to making a change. Whatever that is, whatever your decision is, put that on the D line. And then on the O line, what's the outcome that you're aiming for? What do you want to see happen as a result of that decision to overcome those obstacles because of the takeaway? And you can write that down. If you want to shoot it to me, take a picture or a screenshot of it and shoot it to me on Facebook, or you want to send it through an email, however you want to send that out. You can hashtag it with, I don't know, what should we do? Be the visionary CEO, hashtag be the visionary CEO, whatever you want to do. I want to know what your takeaway, your potential obstacle, your decision, and your outcome is.
I love that. I love action items. I love taking knowledge immediately and turning it into something. So I hope if you're listening, again, you heard it straight from Breanne, the to do acronym and her steps for actually taking a step forward towards something. Hashtag be the visionary CEO. Awesome, Breanne. So happy to have you here today. Look forward to connecting again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.